A wild wolf bites down with 400 pounds of pressure per square inch. Your ancestor barely had the jaw strength to chew raw roots. So picture the gap between them. It's 30,000 years ago in northern Eurasia. The temperature is 10 degrees below zero. Ice sheets stretch to the horizon. You're shivering beside a dying fire, holding a stick that feels completely useless against the shadows circling your camp. One of those shadows steps into the light. It doesn't attack. Not because it's scared of the fire, not because it's full, because it made a choice. You're slow. You're weak. You have no fur and terrible night vision. By every rule of nature, you are the perfect prey. But the apex predator, staring back at you right now, isn't looking at dinner. It's looking at a biological loophole that will permanently alter the future of this planet. Why would a ruthless, pack-hunting killing machine suddenly decide to team up with a hairless, defenseless ape? The answer isn't a fairy tale about a cute puppy getting adopted. It's far more calculated, far darker, and built entirely on mutual survival. To understand this unlikely alliance, we have to look at the evidence. Evolutionary biologists studying ancient wolf genomes across Eurasia and North America found something that doesn't fit the peaceful story we usually tell. Wolves and early humans weren't casually crossing paths. They were tracking the exact same prey, locked in brutal competition for meat in a frozen world where losing meant death. Every encounter between these two apex predators should have ended in bloodshed. But something stopped it. The violence paused. And to understand what broke one of nature's oldest rules, we need to strip away everything you think you know about the Ice Age. Imagine the sheer effort it takes to bring down a woolly mammoth. A wolf pack spends days tracking and exhausting a creature that could crush them with a single step. It's an enormous risk for an uncertain reward. Ancient humans hunted differently. We threw spears from a distance. We built traps. And because a tribe could only carry so much meat back to camp, we left carcasses behind, bloody, half-eaten, abandoned in the snow. This created an opportunity the smartest wolves couldn't ignore. Fighting humans was dangerous. Following them was profitable. Why risk a mammoth's hooves crushing your skull when slower? Clumsier hunters were leaving free meals scattered across the tundra. That was the first handshake. Desperate, hungry wolves became quiet scavengers on the edge of human camps. But scavenging alone doesn't explain loyalty. Most scavengers bolt the instant the real predator returns. So why did these particular wolves keep coming back? The truth here is genuinely surprising. Wild wolves largely domesticated themselves. Humans didn't chase them down and force them into submission. They chose us, generation by generation, without either side fully realizing what was happening. The boldest, most aggressive wolves, the ones that snapped and growled at humans, were dangerous, and early humans dealt with danger the only way they could. They killed the visible threats. The calmer wolves, the ones with naturally lower stress responses, weren't seen as a danger. They were tolerated. They got to eat the leftover scraps. They survived the brutal winters that killed off the bolder members of their own pack. Generation after generation, this quiet filter kept working. The aggressive genes faded. Only the calmer, less fearful wolves kept reproducing. Their snouts grew shorter, their ears turned floppy, their brains, on average, grew slightly smaller. But a smaller brain didn't mean a less capable animal. It meant a more specialized one. And what they specialized in was something almost no other wild animal on Earth has ever mastered: reading us. Stare directly into the eyes of a wild timber wolf, and its brain reads that as a direct challenge. An instant trigger for fight or flight, stare into the eyes of a modern dog, and something entirely different happens. Its brain releases a flood of oxytocin, the same bonding hormone a mother releases while looking at her newborn child. Remarkably, ours does too. Over thousands of years, these early proto-dogs evolved to make sustained eye contact specifically to communicate with us. Something even our closest living relatives, chimpanzees, never developed. It wasn't a conscious strategy. It was simply the genetic pathway that worked. The wolves that could trigger a caretaking response in humans got fed. The ones that couldn't, didn't. Once that connection was in place, these animals had secured something incredibly rare in the natural world. A stable, renewable food source that didn't require risking their lives on a hunt. But this alliance wasn't a gentle, harmonious partnership from the start. It had a brutal side that rarely makes it into the story. Trust between two apex predators is fragile, and wild wolves were still wolves at heart. When food ran short during the harshest Ice Age winters, the fragile truce could break down fast. A starving wolf pack has no loyalty to a sleeping human camp, so when prey vanished under heavy snow, wolves that lingered nearby, without being fully trusted, became a serious threat. Early humans responded the only way survival allowed: ruthlessly. The friendly wolves were tolerated and fed. The unpredictable ones were driven off or killed. This created a brutal, binary selection pressure, total dependence on the human camp, or total exclusion from it. There was very little middle ground, and that pressure, generation after generation, is exactly what pushed wolves further down the path toward becoming dogs. Once trust was established, these loyal wolves started doing far more than scavenging leftovers. They became a living early warning system. A wolf can smell an approaching predator from a distance no human nose could ever match. It can hear movement through dense brush long before human ears would ever pick it up. Suddenly, a human camp with wolves nearby became one of the safest places in the prehistoric world. Any predator or hostile group attempting to approach at night had to get through a wall of teeth first. This defensive partnership may have given early Homo sapiens a real edge in an unforgiving world. Some researchers, including anthropologist Pat Shipman, have proposed that this alliance could partly explain why our species thrived while Neanderthals, who show no clear evidence of forming similar bonds with wolves, eventually disappeared. It's worth being clear. This remains a debated hypothesis, not settled science, and Neanderthal extinction likely had many contributing causes. But it's a compelling possibility worth considering. What's less disputed is this: wolves gave early humans an outsourced nose, outsourced ears, and an extra line of defense, advantages that simply didn't exist before this alliance formed. Humans today reshape entire ecosystems just by existing. But we didn't get here alone. We got here in part because a hungry, ferocious predator once chose to swallow its pride and sit quietly by a stranger's fire. The wild wolf gave up a piece of its ancient freedom. In exchange, it became something no longer hunted, no longer starving, no longer alone. A species carried forward into every corner of the world, at the side of the very creature it once should have killed. The fire is still burning. And somewhere, in the quiet at the edge of the light, there are still eyes watching, not for a hunt anymore, but simply choosing, once again, to stay close.